Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we've got probably the smallest device for streaming 4K video to your television that I've seen so far this year. This is the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, and this is it. This is the entire device. You just plug it into an HDMI port on your television, and we've got a couple other things that connect to it, which I'll show you in a second, and you are off and running at 4K in HDR for services that support it. So a pretty nice little stick here, a simplification a little bit of Roku's product line, which I'll explain in a minute. But I do want to mention, in the interest of full disclosure, that this did come in free of charge from Roku. However, all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. Nobody is paying for this review, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. This is a very simple product to install. All you have to do is plug in the HDMI connector here to your television, and you're off and running. One thing it does not come with, though, is an HDMI extension cable. So if you don't have room behind your TV to stick this in, you might need to go out and just get a small HDMI extension cable to get everything up and running. In fact, I'll have one on the table here in a second when I demo how this works. It is powered by this USB connector right here, and there's a unique cable that comes with it, because what they've done is integrated the Wi-Fi antenna into this power cable, so you're able to get your antenna a little bit further out from the device. So the antenna is external of the device here. You need to have this cable for the best Wi-Fi experience. Of course, it comes with that cable in the box. They also give you a USB extension cable, so if this cable is too short, you do get an additional amount of USB cable length to get everything working. And then, of course, you have a power adapter, although your television might be able to provide enough power for this device to work through one of its USB ports. And, of course, they pack a remote control in the box with it, and it looks just like all of the other Roku remotes we've used in the past, maybe a little slimmer than it was before. You still get the little tag here at the bottom as well. These buttons here will directly load up applications that have paid for a position here on the remote control. So that's something that Roku does. Now, Roku doesn't operate their own streaming services, so you get a good bulk of the streaming services that are out there. And of course, these four have paid for a first-class seat on your remote control. This works via radio frequency back to the Roku here, so you don't need a direct line of sight. There's also an IR blaster on the front here to work with your television or receiver, so you could turn off the TV with the power button here, as well as control the TV volume here through the IR blaster here on the front. But one thing the Rokus do not support very well is something called HDMI CEC. Now, other devices that I use do allow me to control things on that device from my TV remote, but the Roku does not allow that. So you can power up your system here by hitting the power button. When I had this plugged into my stereo receiver earlier, it powered up the receiver and the TV and switched everything to the right HDMI input. So it does support CEC for that, but it will not let you control everything with your TV remote. So you will be using the Roku remote or their app, which I'll show you in a little bit when using the device. Now, the Streaming Stick Plus here costs $69 as you see it, so it's pretty reasonably priced compared to other similar name brand 4K streamers we've looked at recently. What they did do is simplify their product line a little bit when they released this. So last year we were looking at the Premier Plus, and the Ultra. They got rid of the Premier and the Premier Plus and basically integrated those features for the most part into this device. Now, the Ultra is still available, so the next step up from this one in the Roku line is the Ultra. The video and audio performance will be about the same, but the Ultra has an Ethernet port for connecting it to your wired network, so that might give you slightly better performance in certain circumstances over the Wi-Fi antenna that you have on this particular device. The Ultra, of course, supports Wi-Fi as well. The Ultra also has a headphone jack built into their remote for private listening, but as you'll see in a few minutes, you can also do that with the Streaming Stick through their mobile app. So Ultra at the top level, 99 bucks. This one is a step below it at $69. Below this one is the other Streaming Stick that Roku makes. That one costs anywhere from $39 to $49. That one works pretty much the same way this one does, but the other Streaming Stick does not support 4K. It's 1080p at the max. So that one is kind of the entry point for their mainstream product line, and then it kind of goes up from there. There's also the Express that we looked at last year. That one starts around 30 bucks, lower powered device, but a good quick and dirty device if you want to get into streaming on a budget. So a lot of different products at different price points, but I think they have very much simplified the product line for this year, which I think will make it a lot easier for consumers. Not so good for me, because that was one of my top videos of the year explaining the Roku product line, but I'm glad to see that they're making it a little bit easier to figure out what device that you need. So let's take a look now and see how all of this works. We've got the Roku connected up. We've got the wireless antenna hanging off of there. I should note that this does support wireless AC, which is sometimes required for some of the higher bitrate videos you might be watching from Netflix and Amazon Video that are coming across in 4K. The interface is largely the same as what we've seen on other Roku devices. So if you go to the home screen here, these are all of the channels that I installed on the device. They call their apps channels, essentially. They are all variations of media players from different media providers. So you can scroll through some of the things that I have installed on mine. If I wanted to watch Amazon Video, for example, I can just click on it. It will load up and get all of the video up and running for me. Now, most of these apps do support 4K. So if you are looking at Amazon Video here, for example, shows like The Tick are not only in 4K, but also support HDR. And one of the nice things that I liked about the setup process with this was that when I connected it up to my television, it ran an automatic detection tool to tell me what I could play back on that TV. So for my Samsung low-end 4K TV over there, it found that it could do 60 frames per second at 4K, but if I wanted to watch HDR stuff, it would knock me down to 30 frames per second. I did find that the Amazon Video app here was able to play back The Tick in not only 4K, but also with the HDR. So it was successfully transferring my TV into that mode, which was nice to see. They do have some manual settings that you can do to force different modes onto your television if you don't like that automatic thing, but I do think for most consumers, the automatic detection should do the trick. I'm pretty pleased with the performance of the box overall. It does feel like it's a pretty snappy interface here as I jump between applications. So we can go from the Amazon app over here over to YouTube, and YouTube will load up pretty quickly here, at least compared to some of the prior editions of the sticks they came up with there. So pretty fast transition between different apps. I was able to play back YouTube content 4K at 60 frames per second. I didn't have any drop frames. Everything seemed to work very nicely on my television over there, even at 60 frames per second. So it was able to keep up and play back all the video that I was hoping to play back with it. And I was also pleased by how fast everything spins up when you do want to watch something on Netflix, for example. So I can jump over here to maybe the new season of Stranger Things and hit the resume button here, and you can see it really does spin up very quickly and get my videos playing back very quickly too. So really not a lot of waiting here. It really performs a lot better than I remember some of the first iterations of this stick performing. So we can jump over to something that I haven't watched yet here and just see how fast it pulls up something I haven't seen. And you can see here things really do spin up very quickly. Sometimes you'll see a little bit of pixelization as the higher quality stream comes through, but generally there hasn't been a lot of issues with this. And I think the fact that it supports AC wireless, has that external antenna, might give you better performance than you might have experienced with one of these small streaming sticks in the past. And there are a couple of other features worth mentioning. The first is the voice search option. There's a voice button here right in the middle of the remote. If I hold it down and ask it a question like, "Show me Star Trek: The Next Generation," it will pull up a listing of all of the different Star Trek shows that it knows about. And what's cool about this is that because it's a Roku-generated interface here, it is largely service provider agnostic. It'll give you every service provider that has season 4 here, for example, and I can click through and watch it on the service that I want. So if I choose Netflix here, it's going to bring me right into Netflix and kick off the Star Trek season 4 for me. And there you go. It starts up and you're off and running with it. And you can, of course, then navigate the Netflix interface to find other seasons if you want to do that. So pretty fast voice search. I like how it aggregates all the services together. So if you really want to watch something, you can see where it's available. You obviously may have to pay for it on some of those services, but you'll at least know where to find it. And there are a couple of ways to use your mobile phone with the Roku. One of them is to have some of the popular streaming apps on your phone cast over to the Roku, and they're often built right into those apps. So for example, on the YouTube app here, you're going to see a little icon here at the top that looks like something you might see if you have a Chromecast also, which is the casting option. And when you tap on that link, you can select the Roku Streaming Stick here, for example. So if I go ahead here and start playing back a video from my YouTube channel, if I go up to this little icon here and tap on the casting option and send it over to the streaming stick, what this will do is invoke the YouTube app on the Roku and start playing back the video that I had running here on my phone. Again, this works just like a Chromecast does, and you can queue up a bunch of videos on your phone and then let them play back for you on your Roku, which is kind of a nice way to navigate things with your phone. And they've also improved the app that you can use from your phone to control the Roku. This works on Android or on iOS. We'll look at the iOS version right now. So they have a bunch of content recommendations. This looks and works a lot like what you saw on the voice search earlier. So I can select a piece of content here, for example, and it will tell me which apps that I can watch that content on. If I go over here to the channels icon at the bottom, it will pull up all the channels that I have currently installed on my Roku. So if I wanted to jump over to Netflix, for example, I can tap on that. It will load the Netflix app up on the Roku, and I can use the remote here to navigate around. And one of the nice things about this remote is if you look in the lower right-hand corner, there's a headphone jack icon. And what this lets me do is listen to the Roku privately from across the room. So it will sync up the audio with the phone, and I'll hear the audio from whatever the Roku is playing over the headphones that I have connected to my phone, which is a great feature if you want to watch and you've got somebody in the room with you. You can have your own private listening experience through the remote here. Now, if you do go for the more expensive Roku Ultra, they do have a headphone jack built into the remote that replicates the same feature, but using your phone is also just as good. Now, one other feature I thought was pretty cool was the ability to cast your photos and videos from your phone to your Roku wirelessly through the app here. And the way you get to that is close out of the remote section here. There's an icon here at the bottom called Photos, which I'm going to tap on right now. And I'll switch over to my other view here to get you a closer look at this. And what you can do here is cast music, photos, or videos to your display. And I was really quite pleased with how you can get your pictures on screen and manipulate the images. So I've got a image here of a fresh ear of corn, and we'll let that cast itself over to the TV screen. And what's neat is that when you have the image up here, if you pinch to zoom on your phone, you can zoom in on the image on your television screen. And when I was playing with this on my 4K TV, it looked great because these images were shot from a high-resolution smartphone camera, and you can really zoom in on the detail on your television. And I really like just how quick and responsive it is here as you're playing around with it. So pretty cool feature to look at your pictures. You can swipe through and browse other photos that might be on your albums as well, and kind of a fun way to look at pictures on your TV. So that's going to do it for the Roku Streaming Stick Plus, and I am very pleased with its overall performance. It really spins up video very quickly. It works great on my 4K TV over there. Even the 60 frames per second stuff on YouTube is coming up very quickly, and no drop frames or anything else like that. So decent wireless performance, decent overall performance when jumping in between applications, and they've really improved a lot of their mobile remote apps on it too. So all in a great general purpose device. I do not recommend these though for enthusiasts, people that want to really push the limits on their gear, because these boxes don't run a lot of apps. They don't run Kodi, which is often the go-to home theater application out there. It doesn't support some of the higher-end lossless audio formats that I know enthusiasts want to use, but it does support Dolby Digital, which is the digital audio format that most of the streaming services use. So for Netflix and Amazon and everything, it's going to be fine, but if you are doing a lot of your own home theater stuff, you'll probably want to look at an Android box that will give you more robust features. But these are really easy to get up and running. They stay up to date as far as their apps are concerned, and it might be a good choice if you have an older 4K television that's no longer getting its apps updated. They will get updated here. But I do want to leave you with one warning. Make sure your television supports HDCP 2.2 on its HDMI ports. Many TVs do, some don't. I have a TV upstairs that supports it on only one of its 3 HDMI inputs. So just be sure your equipment supports it, otherwise it will run only at 1080p. And if you are unfortunately stuck with one of those TVs that doesn't have that support, you may as well go with the less expensive streaming stick, because this one will essentially work the same if you don't have that copy protection built into your television. But if you do have it and your apps are not up to date, these Roku boxes are a great way to replace whatever you were using inside your TV with something that gets updated more frequently and may likely have a better overall interface. So that's going to do it for the Roku Streaming Stick Plus. Lots more to come on this topic in the near future, so leave your questions and comments down below in the comment stream. This is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporters, the Black Eyed and Blues Music Hour podcast, Chris Allegretta, John Prawl, William Miller, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.